Hey gang, what is going on? Welcome to part 2 of our Superstar Spotlight on the Big Red Machine. Kane, Ryan, Juan, and Keith. If you have not, make sure to check out part 1 available right here on the channel. We talk about his debut, the Hell in a Cell match, Kane and the Hurricane, Half-Masked Kane, Brothers of Destruction, and tons more. As well as make sure to check out the description section as we have a companion video playlist. So while we talk about the Big Red Machine, you can actually see the Big Red Machine. So let's actually take a bit of a break going down memory lane and just focus on some of the things that Kane did. In particular, much like we did with Randy Orton, his signature and finishing moves. As you mentioned in part 1, Keith, we didn't really know he was going to do the tombstone, but that became part of his repertoire. Of course, the choke slam was more of the long-term thing. But did you guys enjoy that he basically had the Undertaker's things as his signature and finisher?
I did, because not only did he use the Undertaker's, but especially at the beginning, he did it better than the Undertaker. I am of the camp that thinks that Kane's tombstone was much better looking than the Undertaker's, because the Undertaker's was very The Undertaker's was very deliberate. Like, you got him up and then boom, tombstone. Like, it was a very fluid motion, but Kane was just drop him clean on his head. It looked a lot more impactful. Now, a chokeslam is a chokeslam. I don't really think that there was that much of a difference between the two. But Kane's a big dude, especially when he was, how does Stone Cold say it, Ryan? He was,
gas to the gills.
Gas to the gills, that's what I was trying to say. He would just lift the guy up, got so much elevation, and dropped him. I thought that those were very good finishers and signatures for Kane. And still are, really.
I felt like Kane's tombstone maybe at the beginning was better, but I do feel like of recent times when I've seen Kane do the tombstone, it just has not looked good. Basically from early 2000s on, I wasn't really feeling Kane's tombstone. I always felt like Undertaker, he was able to do that quick drop and, when he hit his knees and then made sure the guy was on his back really quickly so you couldn't see the gap between the mat and the top of the guy's head. Kane, I feel like I love his choke slam, the whole setup. He'd pull the glove and do the whatever thing, and he made that his finisher. It's like Undertaker did the chokeslam kind of as his signature move, but Kane would beat people with the chokeslam. So to me, his chokeslam always meant more.
I was never a big fan of Kane's tombstone for the reasons you actually brought up, Keith, because even though the Undertaker's was maybe a little bit slower, it was more cinematic. It was, the build-up was more to it there. Yeah. I actually didn't like the fact that he, put the guy down and then quickly, flipped him, for the cover, he put him down. Of course, the worst tombstone I think Kane ever did, and it's not even arguable, is the tombstone he delivered to Linda McMahon on stage. Where, Linda McMahon's head was that far away from actually hitting the ground to the point where even with the replays.
Let's quick side talk. What was worse, that tombstone or the Hulk Hogan chokeslam that the Undertaker did? Who did it worse?
Well, that was a botch, straight out, wasn't it?
No, I think it was just a crappy chokeslam.
Yeah, that was a really bad chokeslam. At least he technically got hit with it. With Linda McMahon.
Okay.
There was no way.
Yes. And it's technically worse, the Hulk Hogan one, I guess, because, Linda's not a wrestler.
Yeah, true.
That's true, yeah. So I guess it's a tie.
Yeah, I guess there's a good argument for both. Yeah. Let us know what you think is the worst in the comments below.
Yes, sir. So let's actually bring up something that we left off for part 2. We're still talking about Half-Masked Kane, just before the unmasking. There was this storyline that eventually led to the unmasking, and that, of course, featured the then World Heavyweight Champion Triple H, who was poking fun at Kane's past, talking about his former girlfriend, Katie Vick, who we talk about here on the channel. Make sure to also check that one out. We already covered that storyline enough, so I want to just have a different conversation. Did you think that Kane looked good or even menacing in the storyline? What did you think was the benefit?
Are we talking leading up, or the entire Triple H thing, or just
Yeah, exactly, because essentially that's what made Unmasked Kane become a thing. Mm-hmm. So to me, my thought process is if you're gonna unmask him, have him be pissed off or something. But to me, the storyline was so weak for him. It just seemed like it was Triple H being the bully, and then Kane was taking all the damage.
But in my opinion, that's why it was so effective, because you had this masked Kane that wasn't really who he was back in the day. It was almost like a neutered Kane, and Triple H beat the crap out of him in the first part of that storyline. So finally, Triple H pushed him over the edge. Kane lost his mask, and then all of a sudden we saw this brand new crazy Kane that would just destroy everybody in his path. Really the closest that we've come to Kane back in the day. So yes, you are right that he did feel very neutered. He felt like he got beat up real bad in that storyline with Triple H, but I feel like that was to the benefit of everything overall.
Yeah, the payoff. That's a good point. What about for you, Ryan? Did you enjoy the fact that, as you mentioned, you like Kane being the huge monster, but then with Kane leading up to the unmasking, he wasn't exactly that.
Yeah, leading up to the unmasking, this was just kind of one of the weakest Kanes. I think we all kind of look back at the half-masked Kane and just say, it's one of the low points. And of course, you couple that with the whole Katie Vick storyline. But then, he does this thing with RVD, which leads up to the unmasking, and this kind of changes everything.
Yeah, it was a literal game changer for Kane.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I mean, everybody, I remember even in the N64 games, people would remove the mask just to see if even in the games they figured out who he was or what he looked like.
Oh, right.
So I'll never forget, I was recording on a VHS tape, times change, this Raw. And when that happened, I just replayed that probably 20 to 30 times. How was that for you guys? We got to see Kane, the man behind the mask.
That was one of the nights in wrestling I'll never forget, because after watching that, that's kind of one of the first times I kind of wanted to jump into the whole IWC. Was after that happened, I needed to know what everybody else thought about it. So I was searching all the wrestling forums and seeing how people were reacting, just because it was so crazy. I didn't think it was going to actually happen. I thought they would find some way, or they would cover it up so you couldn't see his face. They do something to protect it so that the next week he'd just still have his mask on. But no, he just straight up took that mask off, had that really crazy weird hair and the the black makeup all over his face. He just choke slams RVD, and I'm just like, damn, what just happened?
Was I the only one that thought that maybe he was an imposter? I find it so hard to believe, no, that can't be Kane. They can't do that to him. That's got to be fake.
Because was that really the first big unmasking in the WWE? Because was there really anybody else that happened
We've had
with?
big unmaskings in WCW, like Rey Mysterio, who went to Guerrera, Conan in Mexico, but in WWE, not anyone that I care about.
Yeah, no, that was, I think that's one of the first, and why it was so impactful, because we'd never seen anything like that. But yeah, no, it changed the game for Kane, because his character flipped 180. Almost in a week, he went from this very soft, easy to beat Kane to this wrecking ball that would just destroy everything in his path. In a matter of a couple of months, he lit JR on fire. He chokeslammed Eric Bischoff off a stage. Yeah. He, one of my favorite endings to a cage match ever happened between him and RVD, where he threw RVD through a cage, and then RVD ended up winning because he landed on the ground.
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
It was just this. Kane became this unstoppable, awesome force again that just nobody could touch, just because he was just a wrecking ball.
The word we used in the last part. Presence. The presence came back. He had the towel on his head. He had the security team. He used to be chained up.
Yeah, handcuffed, yeah.
Yeah. You were just like, damn, this guy's a badass.
And plus, during that time, he had Slow Chemical as a theme, and that's a really badass theme.
That was a really, really cool theme, too.
Yeah, I don't think there was a much better way they could reintroduce Kane. It was almost like, regardless of if it was the same person or not, which it was, this is a whole new character, same name, but it just works so well. I think the whole look, the fact that he didn't even have eyebrows, just every little detail works so well for him. And then this proceeded to have one of my favorite storylines of all time, and that had to be his feud with Shane McMahon. They got the ambulance match, they got a ton of stuff, and Shane McMahon is somebody that we got to talk about in the future here because it's Shane McMahon. You don't think like, okay, so we're talking about this monster, right? Reinvented, and then Shane McMahon is the feud that I love. Like, what's going on here? And it was because of that. It wasn't a wrestling feud. It was a fight. It was a brawl. It was a battle.
Like, that feud produced some of the most uncomfortable moments in wrestling history. Not even just testy. That's a good point. Yeah. But not even like bad uncomfortable, where involving that tombstone to his mother Linda. But that one Raw where Kane handcuffed Shane to a ring post and then proceeded to hook a car battery up to his testicles and electrocute him. Like, that wasn't a short thing. They spent a while setting that up, and that kind of really set the pace for the whole feud because, like Juan said, it wasn't a fight. It was just Kane beating the ever-living crap out of Shane McMahon, and then Shane kind of pulling out a win. It was a hell of a feud. One of Kane's best.
And I remember something about that feud. It was in the ambulance match where it wasn't about Shane becoming a better wrestler. It's like, how the hell do I take this guy down?
It's more about survival, really. That was
Kane,
feel.
Like, Kane threw Shane on fire, right? Wait, was it? Am I getting it reversed now? I forgot right now. Wow.
I think at some point in the feud, like, there was a dumpster lit on fire that Kane got thrown into, and he just kept coming. Yeah.
Yeah, I got the opposite. Sorry, but so it got really out of hand. And honestly, to me, and this is not even to Kane, this is where I realized this is kind of ridiculous, but it's ridiculous enough to remind me why I love wrestling. Like, it is a personal storyline, but it is unrealistic and outrageous. Like, I like that balance because you felt Shane was so important in this. If it was any other wrestler, I don't think we give a damn about the storylines. I mean, with the Linda Tombstone and all that. So for you, Ryan, did you like this? Did you think it solidified Kane's new role, even though it was against Shane?
100%. This is when Kane felt dangerous again, like really dangerous, when he's setting JR on fire and hooking a car battery up to Shane McMahon's testicles. Like, he is doing some crazy stuff, and like I said, the whole presence, the whole security team that he had to be escorted with and everything. This was like, this was basically Kane born again, like, as the monster. And unfortunately, I don't think it lasted as long as it could have.
Yeah, so this is where, if you look down at the list of topics that we have, what you just said kind of ended up being the case, sadly. So, and yeah, by the way, Shane is the person that threw Kane into the fire. I just wanted to clarify,
Fact check.
Now, he was involved. Kane actually gained a couple of pounds. I don't know what happened, but just after the storyline, things seemed to take a turn for the worst. It wasn't until WrestleMania 20 that around this time we started getting the rumors. The Undertaker's coming back, and he's not coming back as the dead man or the Phenom. He's coming back he's coming back as the Undertaker, not the American Badass, I should say. And then Kane was doing all these things, these eulogies. No, he's not coming back.
Well, if you remember, at Survivor Series before that, Kane was the one that buried the Undertaker alive. There was that buried alive match between Vince McMahon and
which I try to forget.
Yeah, well, that's a whole other can of worms. But Kane's storyline killed the Undertaker, and then that's kind of where it all fell apart. Like, ever since that, he went back to being the neutered Kane slowly. Like, the more I'm thinking about it, Kane's entire career is like awesome, then straight down. You're back to being like irrelevance almost. And this was a good example of that.
Yeah, sadly. Now, this is around the time where the streak started to matter a little more because, of course, before this, it was simply matches and The Undertaker happened to win. But this was one of the few storylines where, Kane mentioned, he's beaten me before in WrestleMania. He's beaten other people, but I am going to beat him before he has a chance to really have a full career again. Did you guys care about that, WrestleMania 20? I know a lot of people don't look back in this match as something that they like very much, so I want to get your feedback.
It was a very important match. It wasn't that great, but it it really kind of set the pace for a whole new Undertaker. And, unfortunately, it kind of ended up being more about the Undertaker than Kane. I mean, you got to give credit to Kane for carrying this storyline up until WrestleMania on his own, because Undertaker obviously didn't appear until then. But Kane just kind of got overshadowed here by the dead man coming back, and then
absolutely,
Undertaker just kind of goes off and does his own thing, and Kane gets a little lost in the shuffle.
It makes you wonder, what if Kane would have actually won that match? Because I really do think, if not so much ending the streak, but if anybody needed a win at WrestleMania to beat The Undertaker to sort of avoid growing ice cold, it would have been Kane right here. Because after that, the next topic we have on the list involves Snitsky, Kane, Lita. This was where, so The Undertaker's back. So where's Kane at? I don't know. Just, he's going to have a baby with Lita. How did that happen? It's probably legal and kind of rapey. But, we're going to have that storyline happen, because why not? So Kane was almost a dad, which led to one of Keith's personal favorite matches, which I'm not even going to say the title.
Yeah, it's the glorious match where all of the stakes are on the line. It was SummerSlam. I believe it was Kane versus Matt Hardy in the epic Till Death Do Us Part match, where the winner of the match got to marry Lita. Really,
wrestling people.
Yep, exactly. Isn't wrestling the best? But this is, when we were talking about Kane being ice cold, this really felt like, so we're full circle now. Monster Kane is a thing of the past. Now he's a man that impregnated Lita, and then Snitsky came around and killed the baby. So now Kane's fighting.
Punted.
It wasn't his fault.
And then he punted the baby into the crowd.
My apologies. So now, so in the matter of a year or two, you've gone from this unstoppable monster that lights people on fire and just destroys everything into his path, to a man that's fighting a man that punted a fake baby into the crowd. Really, how does that happen?
Well, I'll say one thing that was cool was I liked how they debuted Snitsky, because he looked like he was just going to be a random jobber in the match, and then him accidentally knocking Lita over and causing the whole miscarriage thing made him just turn into a relevant person. I thought that was maybe the one highlight of that storyline, but everybody,
the one highlight of Snitsky's career,
we were all talking the whole time about how terrible this storyline was, and the whole Edge and Lita thing is actually kind of what killed the storyline, because once the jig was up,
no pun intended.
Yeah, once everybody knew about the whole Lita Matt Hardy Edge thing, they eventually just had Lita betray Kane and side with Edge. So mercifully, that storyline just ended.
But even then, look at how it ended. Once again, Kane's like, no, man, you're not even good enough for this. We're moving that way. You even fell at this. And that sort of seemed to be the case. Now, monster aside, because that seems to be long gone by this point, was there any entertainment value that you guys got watching Raw, SmackDown, anything around this point in time where you're like, I kind of want to watch this show for Kane?
No, that storyline was 100% one of the low points of that year.
Absolutely. I mean, we got the "it wasn't my fault" quote out of it, but that's really the best that you can say. And,
hey, Snitsky
and I guess
went
we got
places.
the "till death do us part" match, which is a whole other can of worms, but
so many positives. Now, he did become champion after this. There was this company that WWE relaunched called ECW. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this. It was anything but Extreme around
Eastern
this point.
Championship Wrestling.
Yeah, Terry Funk was in there. Pretty good thing. Yeah.
R.I.P.
So, just when you think they can't do anything less with Kane, he kind of feuded with Chavo Guerrero in what was a lengthy WrestleMania match. People talk about Sheamus versus Dana Bryan, but they forget there was a match before that match.
Two established ECW superstars like Kane and Chavo Guerrero feuding for the title at WrestleMania.
That'll put butts in seats.
EC-Dub.
Yeah. But it's really a good example to where Kane's career was at the time, because he had a match with Chavo Guerrero at WrestleMania for the title that lasted 19 seconds long. I think Yeah, no, there was a battle royal or something like that Kane won, and then he fought Chavo for the title and just beat him in 19 seconds. I think that's how it went.
Yeah.
But I even think... I can't remember if it was on the pre-show or not. It's very hard to remember. Basically, it was one of the most non-memorable times in Kane's career, and it really set the bar for the low point.
And I mean, things don't really keep progressing here all that much, except he did get a main WWE title opportunity. He was actually world champion for a while, primarily on SmackDown. Honestly, this was around the time where I pretty much tuned out from SmackDown. All I remember is that Kane was actually really heavy around this point. Like, he had a pretty big belly. Physically, he was not the monster, and it almost felt forced. It felt like, let's try to give him the secondary championship up until this point to see what happens.
As like a thank you. He was a Money in the Bank winner, though. I mean,
oh yeah,
that too. Money in the Bank to cash in to win that world title.
He did have a good world title run, as far as I'm concerned. The feud with The Undertaker during this time, I thought was pretty phenomenal. They brought Paul Bearer into it, and they brought back shades of Paul Bearer turning on The Undertaker. And then it all kind of fell apart. Like, they had something really good, and then all of a sudden, oh hey, Edge is ready to come back, so let's get the title off of Kane as soon as we can, and then just give it back to Edge. So I think it unmercifully ended at that point.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people saw this as kind of just like a thank you to Kane, for all he's done. For as long as he's been around, he's one of the most loyal people in the company. So, they were like,
give him the main title.
Like, we don't have to give him the main title, but like, just as a thank you, we'll let him kind of head up SmackDown for a little while.
And it sucks because he absolutely should have had a lengthy title reign that was memorable. Not like you said, as a thank you note, because it felt like that. Because once Edge came back, much like the Matt Hardy storyline.
Minus the whole Edge thing, I thought it was a pretty good title run. Like, him and The Undertaker had something going there.
Didn't Paul Bearer get buried in cement and Taker killed him?
That was a different story.
That was a different story.
That was an Undertaker heel turn that
was like a Paul Heyman Undertaker thing. So in that point in story, Paul Bearer had been buried in cement in years, and then he just randomly comes back.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's why I remember it. Because we were talking back then. I'm thinking why is he? Wait, didn't that happen? Okay, logic.
It's
Wrestling
WWE.
Is wrestling. Exactly.
It was past the 2-year rule. It's all good.
Yeah. So let's fast forward for a little while because, of course, Kane was simply just involved in WWE, but it wasn't until this. And
yeah, Keith, he had a throwaway feud with Randy Orton at a WrestleMania and all that junk in between.
Exactly. He had a ton of feuds, but it was nothing that defined or redefined the character as Kane. And it wasn't until Team Hell No, or the storyline with Daniel Bryan in particular, that people at the beginning were kind of like, yeah, we're getting another Kane X-Pac, Kane Hurricane. This is not going to work. It's going to be stupid. For me, this was easily my favorite part of Kane. I mean, you can talk about debuting Kane and all that, but the entertainment value that we got out of this is something that we always said, when's the last time we got a bromance or a brother storyline happening where you just kind of chill and have a good time? Team Hell No had this. I want to get your feedback. What was your initial reaction when you felt the hints that they were going to try to shoehorn this storyline?
I wasn't initially too excited about this feud because we had seen the Kane on couple storyline before in the tag teams and stuff. And I was probably more upset that Daniel Bryan, who we were all jonesing for that singles run, was being thrown into a tag team. But this was absolutely the best thing for both of these guys at that time.
Absolutely.
They ended up what was probably not supposed to be much of a tag team run or initial feud ended up lasting a year.
Yeah.
And Daniel Bryan got so over, it kind of breathed new life into Kane. They had those segments with Dr. Shelby, the anger management. They were always really funny. They had a good dynamic, and it was a refreshing thing for both of these guys, and the crowd ate up the whole thing.
I think one of the most important things looking back at Team Hell No is to remember that there is no reason that should have worked. It had almost everything going against it, but it just clicked so well. It was really one of the first examples of something organic happening in wrestling, at least in this era. Because it should have been something that we just threw away, like, oh, it's Kane and Daniel Bryan over here. But no, it got a whole life of its own. It was funny, and we were okay with the fact that Kane was funny. I think that's another important point to hit. And yeah, the whole Dr. Shelby thing was great when they would argue. I know one of my favorite things from that time is when they go like, I'm the tag team champions. No, I'm the tag team champions. It was just some of the best stuff that was happening at that time.
And it's funny because something parallel was happening there. Of course, they had the match with The Shield, which also featured Ryback. Outstanding match, incredible match.
What
a way for The Shield to
debut. Was
debut.
that The Shield's first match?
Yeah, that was the first match.
That was a hell of a match.
So Team Hell No had great vignettes, backstage segments, storyline, and great matches. I mean, it's not common you see that nowadays. And the thing that I wanted to get to is that you could tell that the WWE was about to pull the plug on this because there were specific Raws where they just flat out turn on each other. Like to the point where you're like, okay, so now we're going to get the obvious match that everybody thought. It was Kane versus Daniel Bryan. Wait, what? Okay, so
now they're getting sent to anger management because of it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we almost got that later with The Shield. So it's kind of funny how in this time period, they pulled the plugs, they almost did, on two very awesome things that people supported. So Team Hell No became a thing. Daniel Bryan and Kane have went on multiple podcasts stating that this has been one of their most enjoyable storylines to ever really happen. One of my personal favorite tag teams. It's ridiculous enough to even think that I would, say that, but great. Now, Team Hell No ends, and then there is this new phase of Kane because, of course, we got to keep in mind, he became masked again. That's something we didn't even discuss. So I want to just a quick comment there. What was your reaction when there was a point in time where there was like this imposter Kane, which was actually
How did
Festus.
Kane get masked again?
Oh, yeah, we kind of skipped the point where he remasked before Hell No.
Little details, people. I mean, Kane has had a lengthy storyline, so we're just gonna go with it. We're not gonna pretend anything.
When remasked with like the welder's mask and all that. Remember?
Oh right.
So this is we're just gonna jump back a little bit before Hell No is.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So the first thing was that we got the imposter Kane. So Kane's like, "What the hell is going on here?" But then he just threw him out. Like, that storyline was not working. Yeah.
Wait,
like,
are we talking about like
the door.
way back Imposter Kane? Like Festus Imposter Kane?
Yeah.
But that's not when he got his mask back, was
No,
it?
it was not.
No. That was just a storyline to please people like, oh my God, he's getting the mask back, people. Okay, no, that storyline was terrible. Like Festus
so that was like a
than
teaser when they planned to bring the mask back. But now let's get to when it actually came back post World Champion run.
Yes. What was what I'm having trouble recalling is this specific moment where that happened. I know there was a movie that came out that definitely helped. And then, let's see here. We're going to take a quick pause right here. We've never done this. We're going to do some research, and then we'll be right back. Okay, we're back. We did our research. We got the information. So what happened was that Kane was simply injured. He was in a hiatus for about 5 months, and then we got these video packages detailing that Kane is about to be resurrected. He's going to come back, people. And it featured the mask. So he comes back half-masked Kane. What was your reaction when it's like, oh my God, Kane, mask again, amazing? Or was it like, eh?
At first, it was real exciting in the way like, oh, are they going to try and rekindle the whole Kane unmasked, but almost in reverse, like come back as this crazy security force needing demon monster thing? And then that didn't happen. They had a weird feud with John Cena where we really wanted him to embrace the dark side so he could beat The Rock at WrestleMania because John Cena needs hate to beat The Rock, and it involved Zack Ryder's career literally being thrown off a stage. It just didn't feel the same, and it became very disappointing very fast.
Yeah. At this point, I think is when we're all just kind of jaded by what they had done to Kane, where it's like he's been flipped around so many times. What can we really expect? And then luckily Hell No came around, and that was an uplifting point for Kane.
Yes.
Yeah, it almost seemed like a parody of a return for me when he had the second mask that he took off to then reveal the half mask.
The
And then he had the
welder's
iron
It was
claw.
maskception. It was a mask inside of a mask.
And then he had the iron claw as a finisher for like a whole 3 weeks, and that didn't work. And it just didn't work. Like his outfit, like the little lines, I kind of grew into it after a while, I guess. But I don't know. It just seems so odd that he just randomly came back. No storyline reason other than he's resurrected. So we got Team Hell No, and then afterwards, we actually got a storyline that more referenced his past, and that was involving Bray Wyatt. So that was a recent character that at that point in time we're like, yeah, you know, that absolutely makes sense. If anything, Kane should join the Wyatt family or something. Something cool should happen there. And I want to get your feedback with that storyline. Did you think that was a good way of sort of bringing it back to maybe we're going to get the Monster Kane that we haven't seen for quite a while?
Unfortunately, that storyline was a complete dud, and that sucks because that was like Bray Wyatt's first major story when he debuted, and it just ended up being this Inferno match that just didn't work. They like Bray Wyatt had some cool promos where he was kind of like hinting at like things in Kane's like past, and like
he would like talk about Kane's past and at the end bring it all together by just straight up mentioning Kane. They were very good promos, but like you said, it was just a dud.
Yeah,
and then Kane lost that match and went away for a while.
Man, this has been a recurring theme the entire 2-part series. Something happens to Kane, and then he's just gotta be down there for a little while.
Build up, and crash. That is the story of Kane's career.
Yeah, so as we wind down, this next part's a little confusing because then he comes back, and then he sort of turns the mask over to Stephanie McMahon, says, I'm giving in, I'm becoming Corporate Kane. And this is a very, even today, even as we're recording right now, we can still maybe have a possibility where the mask can come back at any point in time because Corporate Kane was basically a justification of, yeah, he's done. Like, he is here, he is an established superstar, he is a tall guy, but that big red monster that you're used to, no. He is in slacks now because that is how you become a monster, a demon. Slacks, people. So, yeah.
Well, I was going to say, with Corporate Kane, I think initially it was a really good decision. Like I said, with Kane, we've been so jaded. He's been bounced around from monster, not monster, monster, not monster. I felt like this was their time where they were like, look, we know the monster's done. Let's just let Kane be just be a corporate shill, and just beat the crap out of people. And for a while, I feel like that was working really well.
It was. Plus, you had that whole element where, because the Wyatt family was all about bringing down the machine at that time. So you kind of had that element of thinking, oh, so Kane went away and then he's joining the corporate side. So maybe he's going to bring down the machine from within with the Wyatt family. None of that ended up happening, but
yeah, there was some good cool conspiracy theories there.
But yeah, no, I think, Ryan, you're 100% right, where they finally just committed, like, okay, we're going out the window with Corporate Kane. It's this whole new thing. He's got slacks. We're moving away from the demon. And it was cool until they didn't move it away from the demon anymore.
And this was sadly around the time where, once again, we're still going through that, where people just don't care. I mean, you look at any segment, forum, Twitter, whatever you got. And people are just, man, just get him off my screen because what else? And I think that, and this is the part that sucks, it's nothing against the guy because it's always like Kane, as you said, Keith, we have these expectations or they're doing something good and then it just goes back down and you can only get away with it so much until people just go like, just stop because you're just going to end up doing exactly what you did last time.
It's a real boy who cried wolf situation with Kane's career.
Yeah, so they had him, be the Corporate Kane, and then after Daniel Bryan wins the championship at WrestleMania 30, they just randomly bring the Demon back just for the storyline. What did you guys think about like the Demon Kane coming back at that point?
Yeah,
it was for the storyline, as you mentioned. There is no purpose to it. It just felt like, well, Kane's part of the thing, so Stephanie pushed the switch, which is just going to get pulled right back down once that was done. I don't think people cared. And you saw it in the reactions. People in the crowd were, man, he is no monster anymore. Can we please get over this? It was like the Big Show.
Yeah, I remember at the time being disappointed that they didn't just leave him as Corporate Kane. So I was actually really happy when they just brought him back as that.
Agreed.
So we've talked about essentially the key moments, or the majority of them. Once again, it is difficult to compile somebody's definitely over a decade long career into about an hour in a 2-part series here. But as we wind down, I want to ask you guys, what would you say was Kane's low point for you as a fan, and then Kane's high point for you as a fan?
To go with low point first, I'm going to say his run as ECW champion. There was that, even around that, there was that little bit where he had that tag team with the Big Show, and it just felt off. It felt worse than humanized pre-Triple H Kane. It was just low. I can't think of any other way to say it. It was just the lowest of the low. As far as high points, I honestly think the best time in Kane's career is when he was unmasked, and he was just that monster that just unleashed havoc on Raw. It was really everything that they were trying to do up to that point, really brought to life with Kane's character. And it doesn't get much higher than that for him, as far as I'm concerned.
I'm going to say his low point is either half-mask Kane-a-Rooney Kane or during the Kane and Lita era time. And for high points for me, it's me personally was Team Hell No, because I consistently watched it and enjoyed that whole ride.
Yeah, same for me. It has to be the Kane Lita baby storyline, because from the very first moment, it just felt so artificial. We talk about Ziggler, Lana, Rusev in a more recent storyline where things just feel forced, and that just felt completely forced. And then for my favorite, it's a tie between the Team Hell No and then probably the Shane McMahon feud. I think that Shane McMahon feud is one of my all-time favorites because, once again, it just should not have worked, but it was such a great fight. Despite the Linda McMahon tombstone, I forget that part. I block it out of my head. I definitely enjoy that. So for those listening and watching us, let us know which is your favorite Kane moment, which is your least involved moment regarding Kane the Big Red Monster, by dropping a comment below. Remember to subscribe to the channel, and if you like our Superstar Spotlights, help us out by giving us a thumbs up. And hey, that comment section, while you're giving us your feedback, drop a question. Let us know who you want us to talk about in a future Superstar Spotlight. We also got the podcast happening every single Tuesday night right here on the channel. We got the Fight Nights reviews. There's a ton of stuff, guys, happening here, right?
Absolutely.
Exactly. And just a quick plug, we also have the Twitch account, twitch.tv/Byte That, where we just kind of hang out, play some of them wrestling games, non-wrestling games, because we don't only like wrestling. It is not mandatory to only like wrestling. So until next time, thanks for tuning in, checking out the Spotlight, and we'll be back. I can't say it.
You were doing so good.
I almost got through it. Okay.
Oh, man.
Okay, here we go.
Brace yourself.
And we will be back with more right here on Byte That. I did it!